the Future Foundation, built to restore hope, collapsed under its own weight. Not from war, not from a mastermind in the shadows. From within, Kazuo Tengen, Chisa Yukizome, leaders who thought chaos could birth peace. The final killing game proved otherwise. Enoshima's madness was over, but her influence wasn't. Despair spreads like a virus, trauma echoing through broken lives. The copycat killing games began. Unplanned, unregulated, and utterly relentless. From Belarus to Senegal, people recreated Enoshima's horrors without her. Not for ideology, for pain. These weren't the Enoshima-class games we knew before. This became something worse. Something chaotic and unpredictable. But where there's despair, there's always hope trying to push back. Amidst a sea of resistance, a divided United Nations selected a former Ultimate General to take the reins of these trying times. Now Secretary General, Takayuki Kaigo, would strive to put an end to this threat. Towa City, once swallowed by chaos, became the first spark of resistance. The very children who once ruled it with fear, Nagisa, Masaru, Jotaro, and Kotoko, stepped up, not for forgiveness, but for redemption. Together with Komaru Naegi, Toko Fukawa, and the broken but persistent Haiji Toa, they stood against the Monokuma threat. And when Nefarious arrived, a brutal machine made to end Monokumas once and for all, the tide finally turned. They didn't just survive, they won. And Towa City became a beacon of hope for the world to see. Komaru and Toko were hailed as heroes. The former warriors of hope rebuilt what they once helped destroy, taking Monika's legacy and industry and transforming it into something new. A Neo-Future Foundation, led by survivors, not saints. Not perfect, but determined. Masaru took the lead, louder and stronger than before. The rest followed, not as Lil Ultimates, but something more. And while the world watched, another legacy rose from the ashes. Hope's Peak Academy. Makoto Nagi returned, not as a student, but as its headmaster, with Kyoko Kirigiri at his side. Class 80 walked through the doors, chosen not for talent alone, but for heart and resilience. It wasn't just a school, it was a promise. The United Nations, desperate to stop the spread of new despair, turned to the Neo-Future Foundation, not out of trust, but out of necessity. Nagisa had a solution. Simulate despair to understand it. Teach an AI to predict it. Through virtual killing games, based on an idea that once failed, the Jabberwock simulation. But this time, it would be different. Supervised, voluntary, collaborative. No one would have to die, and their experience would get the world one step closer to saving lives. To pull it off, they needed minds, tech, and data. The UN joined forces with Hope's Peak, Arasaka, and the Kisaragi Foundation. But something was missing, until Byakuya Togami stepped in. As head of the reborn Togami conglomerate, he offered what no one else could. The truth, the full story of the Neo World program, and access to what remained. But to truly make it work, they needed something more. The ones who lived through it, the remnants of despair. They called it the Jabberwock Plan. And to reach them, the UN sent someone who could navigate the tension. Not a soldier, but a diplomat. The ultimate diplomat from Class 80, Salvador de Miranda. His mission? Convince the world's most infamous survivors to stop the next wave of despair, not by force, by listening. And so, Salvador set sail for the island the world had tried to forget, to meet the people it never forgave. He arrived on Jabberwock Island to waves and an unwelcoming silence, greeted only by Hajime Hinata, offering nothing but a cold stare. They spoke carefully. Salvador laid out the stakes, the Jabberwock plan, the rising threat, and the world's need for their insight. Hajime said no, not out of pride, but out of grief. Jabberwock had been safe, but forgotten. When resources ran dry, Nekomaru Nidai paid the price. A heart condition, no equipment, no time. Even the ultimate hope couldn't save him. That loss changed Hajime. So when Salvador asked him to risk more, Hajime didn't hesitate. He declined, but allowed the UN to take the remains of the Neo World program. A compromise. Nothing more. Salvador tried anyway. He spoke to the others, Peko, Mahiru, Fuyuhiko, Mikan, but they all refused. They had peace, however fragile. None would trade it for a world that hated them. At least, all but one. Kazuichi Soda, still heartbroken, still adrift, was ready to leave it all behind and start anew. Salvador accepted, and with Soda preparing the simulation room, Salvador made his move, stealing the Neo World schematics while no one watched. Just as Hajime noticed, Teruteru Hanamura stepped forward. Desperate to clear his name and fulfill his dream, he begged to come. Salvador agreed, after noticing Hajime's awareness of his actions, using Teruteru as a distraction. As they departed, Hajime watched. He said nothing. Maybe it was permission. Maybe it was surrender. Salvador left the island with 2 remnants of despair, stolen data, and 1 secret stowaway, yet to be discovered. News travels fast. By the time Salvador reached international waters, word had already spread. 2 remnants of despair were en route to the United Nations. Panic followed. Threats, protests, demands for justice or vengeance. Someone even attempted to poison the Secretary General, Takayuki Kaigo. The message was clear: if the remnants reach land, they won't leave alive. Kaigo knew they couldn't risk everything on one ship, so he decided to split the journey between 3 watercrafts. The first, a high-profile frigate meant as a decoy, publicly announced, heavily guarded, with Kaigo himself on board. A distraction. The second, a covert submarine, carrying Kazuichi and Teruteru under tight surveillance. No eyes, no headlines, just silence. And the third, a civilian cruiser already scheduled for Toa City, the JSS Kirigiri. On board were Salvador and his sister, Sora Sonzai, a recent Hope's Peak graduate embedded in the UN. The ship was lightly populated and AI navigated, chosen for discretion. Everything seems under control. Until they set sail. year after the failed voyage of the JSS Kirigiri, 18 volunteers woke up aboard a cruise ship. No memory, no context, no choice. They were greeted by a familiar sight, not Monokuma, but Senor Kuma, a bear donning a sombrero, frog bucket hat, and a mustache. He welcomed them to a safe simulation, a volunteer-based program meant to train and teach, not kill. But things rarely go as planned. The simulation glitched, the screen went white, and when they awoke again, 2 were missing. Senor Kuma, now panicked and glitching, begged them to remove their helmets. They hadn't realized they were in a simulation. Worse, they couldn't escape. And worst of all, the architect of their nightmare appeared.
Spamton G. Spamton.
A tall, white figure with garish sunglasses and a broken voice filter. He called himself a virus, a glitch in the code, and now the new owner of their little floating stage. To prove it, he shot Senor Kuma point blank. The volunteers stood frozen in shock at the dissolution of order and safety. The simulation, once meant to protect them, had been hijacked. And now, it was a killing game. Spamton didn't waste time. His rules were simple: kill, lie, and survive. If you murdered someone and got caught, you'd face execution. If you murdered and got away with it, you'd choose 2 others to die in your place. To sweeten the chaos, he introduced special offers: a mysterious killing perk for the first murderer, and the information that 2 hidden special special students were amongst them. If one didn't die by the end of the game, by anyone's hand, something terrible would happen. Weapons were sold through his personal trash bin at dirt cheap prices. The cost? Their own health. Heart-shaped objects, as he put it. Meanwhile, it turned out Senor Kuma wasn't dead. Wounded and glitching, he quietly freed Tsu Hiyori, one of the missing volunteers. The other, Teruya Otori, had already escaped on his own. As Spamton ran the stage, Senor Kuma gathered allies behind the curtain, Futaba Sakura and Phoenix Wright, in order to restore control. But the game didn't wait. Timers ticked. Tension rose. Then, a body, the first one to come. Natsumi Kuzuryu was gone. The death of Natsumi Kuzuryu shattered what little calm was left. Suspicion spread like a wildfire, so Spamton called for a class trial. Nearing the end, it all came down to one argument: who shot first? The 2 suspects, Goro Akechi and Teruya Otori. Both armed, both shooters, blaming each other. However, only 1 bullet hit. Chiaki Nanami pleaded for more time. Spamton agreed, with a catch. If they were wrong, 1 extra person would die. They voted for Teruya, and they were wrong. Goro Akechi had lied, manipulated the system, and won. His prize? 3 names to execute: Chiaki Nanami, the group's heart; Mukuro Ikusaba, a looming threat; and Sora, for no clear reason. But something strange happened. As the executions began, Sora glitched, phasing out mid-trial. As she wasn't present, her execution was postponed for later. While Spamton retreated to the code, Senor Kuma pulled in 2 new volunteers who were stuck mid-upload: Mitsuru Kirijo and Haru Okumura. Haru hadn't been meant to join. She'd bought her way in. Senor Kuma also managed to rescue Sora out of her glitch, bringing her back to the simulation. To protect her, Senor Kuma handed her a cardboard box to wear on her head. Spamton saw through it instantly, but was amused and let her live.
You've got moxie, sweetheart. I like that.
Then came a new set of motives: free meals in the Grand Saloon, provided by Senor Kuma. They restored heart-shaped objects. A special speckle potion that granted temporary immortality. No cost, no strings attached, or so they thought. Phoenix Wright, Mikan Tsumiki, Su Hiyori, Teruya Otori, and Makoto Naegi all drank it. They were promised godhood, but what they got was poison. It didn't hit all at once. The saloon became a quiet sanctuary. Shared meals, strategy meetings, fleeting peace. But the potion had a timer. When it expired, their health plummeted. Another round was offered, this time with faster decay. Only Teruya and Makoto accepted. Senor Kuma, exhausted, worked through the night to find a cure. Alliances formed in the background. Phoenix and Geiru looked after young Ginibushi. Futaba dove into code, hunting for escape routes. Su Hiyori would make an announcement to everyone in the ship, claiming that he and Teruya Otori were both the special students that Spamton mentioned before. But the reprieve didn't last. 2 bodies were found, Mikan Tsumiki and Rise Kujikawa, both dead in the bathroom. Once again, Teruya Otori was in the crosshairs. He had motive, means, and opportunity. And thanks to the first trial's aftermath, no one wanted to trust him. Worse, Geiru Tornado claimed he had tried to kill her earlier. The damage was done. But as the trial unfolded, cracks formed. Nagito Komaeda and Phoenix Wright, an unlikely alliance, uncovered what others had missed. Goro Akechi had disappeared at a key moment. Teruya also accused Mitsuru, making this a trial with 3 key suspects. In the end, they all decided to vote for Goro Akechi due to his past reputation. And this time, they were right. He had struck again, cold and calculating, ready to do it all over again and target all of the female members of the ship, as he considered them the easiest targets. However, his luck had finally ran out. When the execution began, the ghosts of Chiaki, Mukuro, Mikan, Rise Kujikawa, and Natsumi, the ones Goro had betrayed, manipulated, or murdered, returned. Not to haunt, but to judge. They erased him, not with machines, but with memory. And as for his killing perk, it passed to someone new. The morning after Goro's execution came with a surprise: memorials. Senor Kuma had quietly crafted tributes to the dead. Names in light, flowers in empty spaces. A moment of silence before the dread returned. Spamton, bored of peace, introduced a new threat. Chaotic portals replaced the elevators. Unstable, deadly. If no one died before the timer expired, everyone would. And somewhere on the ship, hidden behind an exterior wall, was the Kigen, promising escape. Nagito Komaeda proposed locking up the most dangerous person, Teruya Otori. The vote ended in a tie. Spamton gave Teruya an explosive instead. Tension erupted. Teruya, now an outcast, threatened the others. Only Haru Okumura treated him with sympathy. Meanwhile, Nagito and Sora hid away, playing truth or dare to cope. Nagito would ask about Sora's killing game crush just to get her mind off things, with Sora not giving a straight answer. Futaba and Mitsuru discovered a terminal with logs from a past killing game. 15 participants, 11 dead, 2 missing, 1 remnant of despair. This wasn't the first time. Then came a scream. Su Hiyori, dead, found in the infirmary. All eyes turned to Teruya again. His history, his threats, his special status, which gave him the perfect motive to take his life. But the truth was simple and devastating. Shin Tsukimi had killed Su, not out of strategy, but heartbreak. Su had broken up with him, publicly, cruelly. Shin snapped. Spamton revealed the final insult. Shin was the only one without an ultimate. No title, just a talentless person. His execution was blunt, boring like his lack of talent, a shotgun to the gut. Phoenix and Futaba Sakura found a previously locked door now open. Inside, a terminal. This one held more logs of the previous killing game. According to the data, 3 individuals aboard the ship had never been officially listed. One of them was confirmed to be a remnant of despair. Theories varied as to why their killing game had happened. Was it to assassinate the remnant, to sabotage the UN members aboard, or to simply spread despair? Geru tried to lift spirits with a comedy show, but Spamton sabotaged it, again and again. Then came the fires. Blazes lit up the halls, and in the chaos, Teruya exploded Nagito. The attack worked, but it was during a non-killing phase, meaning that Nagito survived with 0 health. The ultimate lucky student demonstrated his talent. A new motive followed. The fire would be put out if they played a new game. In truth, Rain had already done the work, but Spamton took the credit. Meanwhile, Sora revealed to Teruya that she had inherited the Thorn Ring, the evolved form of the killing perk that Goro once had. Spamton told her the Kigen would be crucial. She asked for help. Teruya refused. Both began to search. Sora, backed by Spamton. Teruya, guided by Senor Kuma. Teruya found the Kigen first. The group was teleported into isolated rooms. Each player, randomly paired, their partner anonymous. Choose to ally or betray. Both ally plus 20 heart-shaped objects. Both betray, minus 10 each. And if one betrays, plus 30 to them, minus 30 to their partner. Most chose to trust. Gin, unknowingly paired with Futaba Sakura, cooperated peacefully. But others clashed. Geru versus Teruya, Mitsuru versus Phoenix. In the final round where points were doubled, nearly everyone chose to ally, except for Mitsuru. She picked Betray to survive. Phoenix was left with the lowest health. Jin, now with the most, won the game, and had to choose whether to sacrifice himself or to unknowingly kill whoever had the least health. He chose to live, and as Senor Kuma gave the victim a final hug, they were shocked to death. Everyone was returned to the ship's edge. One person was missing, and Gin knew who. He ran. Senor Kuma followed. Spamton, grinning, did too. Only Teruya followed them, while the rest pondered on the situation. In the hallway, Gin found Phoenix's room. Spamton tried to force him inside, but Senor Kuma intervened. However, it wasn't enough, and Spamton shot him. Spamton then forced Gin to face the man he killed, dragging him to his caretaker's room. The others arrived late. Gin sat silently, cat plushie in hand, beside Phoenix's body. Mitsuru snapped, attacking the group, forcing Makoto and Teruya to restrain her. Spamton declared Senor Kuma unfit, and so he created a mini Spamton to take his place. It immediately tried to burn the room down. The group fled, dragging Gin Ibushi with them, just as Phoenix Wright's body burned to ash. The night after Phoenix's death was anything but calm. Sora and Teruya, teleported to the ship's front deck, were hunted by hyperactive mini Spamtons, some even resembling the dead. Meanwhile, the rest awoke to a corrupted ship. Spamton, now powered by the power of Neo, declared the mini Spamtons his enforcers. Weapons were discounted. Special players like Sora could carry 2. Nagito bought a Magnum, with Spamton allowing a repeated purchase since he was his #1 customer. He lured Teruya to the deck, claiming they were the same. Teruya shot him. Nagito died, then revived, protected by system rules. Before vanishing, he left a final message. The mastermind wants Teruya dead. Panic spread. Spamton taunted Gin, projecting Phoenix's face across the walls. Sora stepped in to protect him. Geiru, still spiraling after her failed Rakugo show, quietly asked Sora to keep him safe. Elsewhere, Makoto and Futaba discovered the participant oasis, a glitchless safe zone. There they spotted a ghost, silent, observant, gone. Teruya, now wary of Haru, began to suspect her. She denied being the mastermind, but his trust was gone. In a rare gesture, he gave Gin his magnum.
Don't pity me, just survive.
Later, Futaba was punished by Spamton for her previous hack attempts. He slashed her HP in retaliation, hoping she would die. Meanwhile, a bomb was planted in Teruya's room. He tried to defuse it, only to trigger it. Nagito took the bomb and ran, hoping to die to it and make Teruya the killer. It detonated, but he survived. His luck backfired. Turns out, someone else had died, granting him immunity. Haru Okamura was found later in a jail cell. There were no witnesses, no leads, but a bloodied broom was found, proof that Haru had fought back. Makoto proposed checking health stats. Only one matched the damage, Geiru Taneda. She confessed, believing Haru was the mastermind. She'd struck first, convinced killing her would end the game. She was wrong. Spamton wouldn't give her a chance to say goodbye, as he exploded her. The killing game was over, but Spamton was ready for round 2. He wanted to make them play forever. Then, the ghost returned. A command flashed. Exclamation point collapse. The simulation crashed. The survivors awoke in isolation, speaking as if together, even from afar. Fog filled their rooms. When it cleared, they stood in a hall of memorials. Each table bore their name and a skull. 2 of them had something extra. On Teruya's, the Keegan disc, and on Sora's, her thorn ring. A voice summoned them forward to a portal. Once they crossed it, they met Senor Kuma. He revealed the truth. He had launched the DDoS attack, exploiting his status as a part administrator, and secretly, the 19th volunteer, created as a failsafe. Spamton couldn't be killed, but he could be spammed, overwhelmed and paused until they could figure out something. Their only way out was the debug room, a glitched escape hatch that could only hold 7. Before sending them off, Kuma served a final meal. He opened access again to the participant oasis, a space no admin was allowed except him. In the oasis, they found Sora's full name, Sora Sonzai, and her title as the ultimate vessel. Logs suggesting not all could be saved, but the Kigen could overwrite fate. Mentions of 3 admins. One that protects, meant to be Senor Kuma. One that acts, meant to be Spamton. And one that watches from afar, one they didn't meet yet. They also found a hint that this was not a cycle of death, but a means to become alive. Futaba deciphered the message, discovering that the true victim of the killing game had been Spamton all along, as he was the only one chained to the simulation, forevermore trapped in its coding. Within this, Futaba would discover information regarding the final victim of the previous killing game, it being that remnant of despair that had participated. Teruya would also find a terminal detailing a bounty placed on the same remnant of despair, implying that 2 different organizations had been hunting for them, and one succeeded, thus explaining the 3 individuals who had played the game, who weren't meant to be in the boat. In the engine room, Teruya and Senor Kuma found a log from the Overseer, the 3rd admin and the original host of the simulation. It confirmed the worst. The virus wasn't an accident. The simulation was a success. Their suffering? Just data. Senor Kuma was crushed and confused as he couldn't believe this from his creator. Teruya was furious. Had the Overseer always been the true enemy? As Spamton regained power, the group gathered one last time. Kuma urged them to run. The debug room was ready. They hugged their guide goodbye, thanking their protector. And they ran. As they reached the portal to the debug room, Sora and Nagito lingered for a second.
After this trial, we'll both confess who our killing game crush is.
Sora smiled. They held on to that hope and entered the portal, ready to face their final test. The 7 survivors entered the debug room, a corrupted, flickering void of code. 7 podiums lit up. 2 remained empty. Spamton took one, assuming the last belonged to Senor Kuma, but the others corrected him. That seat is for the Overseer. As Spamton triggered the graduation protocol, 2 options appeared. Option A, graduate. The 7 escape. The others stay dead. Option B, repeat. The survivors remain, and the 11 victims are revived. But just as they were about to vote, a new voice cut through the digital air. A young man entered the room, calm, unannounced, and familiar. One that looked just like them. He introduced himself as the Overseer. He explained that they had a third option. Option C, the shutdown sequence, meant to collapse the simulation. With this option, however, out of the 18 volunteers, half of them would die, and the other half would survive, entirely at random. Spamton tried to shut him out, and failed. The Overseer's permissions were absolute. He explained the truth. This simulation was based on a real death game. One he had survived. Each of them was a data-constructed avatar, with the 2 exceptions of Sora and Nagito. Sora had been the first victim in that real game. Her body connected to the simulation. Her mind became the anchor, the ultimate vessel. Nagito's avatar had been copied from a remnant of despair. His body in the real world was already dead. Escape would kill him. Then came another reveal. Makoto's data had changed. His avatar wasn't as intended. He had become the ultimate unlucky student, when instead his avatar should have replicated the ultimate hope. As for Teruya, the Kigen meant to save Sora or Nagito had ended up in his hands. Mitsuru, Sora, and Nagito were furious, but Teruya stood by his decision. He trusted Senor Kuma, not Spamton's games. Talks of a second DDoS failed. Only Overseer and Kuma would survive it. And if they abstained from voting, Spamton would decide for them. The group split on what option to take, but then the Overseer dropped a final truth. The mastermind behind the 4th Danganronpa game was still at large. They had planted the virus. This whole simulation was a recreation of that game he had participated on. The volunteers were stand-ins for real people. Senor Kuma was built to protect them throughout the experience. Suddenly, a self-destruct sequence began. Overseer's final safeguard. Mitsuru introduced a terrifying final option. Option D, refuse to choose, stay trapped forever, letting Spamton roam free across the internet forever, impossible to delete. Spamton encouraged it. Then, AI Senor Kuma appeared through Futaba's console.
Believe in each other. Make the right choice.
Futaba proposed a 5th path, to build a new choice. Nagito, trusting luck, challenged Spamton on a coin contest, aiming to allow the creation of this option. He flipped Phoenix's badge as a coin, but it landed on its edge. Spamton declared victory and deleted option A. The survivors snapped. They attacked Spamton, but it was no use. Overseer extended the countdown by 10 minutes. The group was running out of time. Makoto, now unraveling, pushed for option D, mass suicide. Futaba, Gin, Teruya pushed for option C. In time, the group began to align. They chose option C. Spamton laughed.
End of the line, is it? The 9 I got to take with me. I'll cherish their heart-shaped objects forever and ever and ever and ever and...
And then he crumbled, erased in the emergency shutdown. The simulation began to collapse. Overseer, watching silently, admitted his regret.
I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, Sora.
He logged off. The fog thickened. The group stood together, uncertain. Makoto was stunned it was ending. Mitsuru hoped she'd see her friends again. Futaba reminded them of Senor Kuma's final wish, to stick together. Naito, turning to Sora, asked her who her killing game crush was. She smiled.
You, always.
With 1 minute left, Sora looked to them all.
Live well. Please.
And then, the screen faded to black. The simulation shut down. Days later, in the real world, the Overseer wrote,
Log number 6. The simulation was a failure. Built on Jabberwock Island's corrupted tech, the Neo World program never stood a chance. Despite the head engineer's assurances, the machines failed, and Spamton was born, with no signs as to who had implanted that virus. Yet the Neo Future Foundation called it a success. Realistic, data-rich, a blueprint to prevent future tragedies.
but to Overseer, it was a nightmare relived, a scar reopened. Only his last-minute intervention stopped it from becoming a massacre. For 3 days, he and a colleague monitored the unconscious volunteers. Senor Kuma, restored, fed them vitals. Overseer knew no one would forgive him after Spamton leaked log number 5. He didn't care. He just wanted them out. Teruya Otori woke first, furious. He was calmed only by security and his own quiet resolve to wait for someone. Mikan Tsumiki followed, dazed, fixated on Natsumi's pod. Then came Mitsuru Kirijo, all fury and blame, stopped only by Teruya. She refused rest, then accepted the situation. Overseer finally slept after 4 days without rest. When he came back, Phoenix Wright was awake, standing vigil over Ginibushi's pod. Futaba Sakura emerged soon after, immediately lecturing the staff about their lack of tech safety. Shinsukimi awoke in fear, wondering if Sue would kill him if he ever woke up. Phoenix waited 76 hours without sleep before Gin finally stirred. Tears fell. Gin asked only,
"Where is Giru and Sora?"
Phoenix didn't answer. Instead, he took him to eat and regain his energy. That night, unnoticed in the corner, Chiaki Nanami snored. She'd been awake for hours, but preferred to sleep in the comfort of the pod. 1 week had passed. Most were now gone. Only Teruya and Futaba remained. She stayed to help as she joined the Neo Future Foundation. He stayed to watch over 2 pods, Haru and Nagito. Neither woke. Instead, Makoto Naegi did. Groggy. Weak. Futaba hugged him in tears. Teruya left in silence, half relieved, half broken. Then the pods began to fail. One by one, 9 lives, gone. Overseer tried everything, but nothing worked. As Makoto prepared to leave, something felt off. He smiled faintly, and Overseer overheard a conversation.
How lucky I am to survive.
Overseer blinked. Somewhere deep in his memory, it echoed.
Disciple 6, what's the grid on those CVs? Over.
22 participants were uploaded into the Arcadia systems using the VR Sims, the successor to the Neo World program, and a virtual safety net designed to keep their bodies safe while their minds entered a simulated killing game. Not everyone loaded in smoothly. A few participants desynced, rerouted to the Church of Senor Kuma. The rest woke up in the debug room, and from there were fully integrated into Arcadia Island, a picturesque but fabricated landscape built from Overseer's own memories. For this second simulation, Overseer joined them, introducing himself as Salvador de Miranda, although still going by Overseer. He explained the rules.
You are all here to play a killing game within the boundaries of the simulation. Die here, and you wake up safely.
Nothing real, nothing permanent, just for data. However, he would give them a second objective: to find memory logs across the island and piece together the truth of the past, of the tragedy across the seas. The killing game he had partaken on. Near the coasts, they would find flooded buildings, each with a unique characteristic. These were buildings created by the memories, and they would unlock over time, holding secrets of their own. Overseer urged them to explore and rest. Some did. Others, like Kizuna Tamori, took immediate action, forming the family faction to protect Sunny and marry Hidaka. Chester Sasori hovered nearby, ambiguous in intent. Elsewhere, pranks and tension took hold. Korekyo Shinguji tortured Kokichioma with the worst comedy show imaginable. Participants were scattered into randomized homes, shared houses, sheds, and military zones. Bonds began forming under uneasy peace. The first night passed with hesitant laughter. Mari, Nao, Kizuna, Celestia, Sarah, and Aegis hosted a girls' night, while Sunny isolated himself. Later, Miles Edgeworth strictly laid out house rules to Aegis to create some semblance of order. Then, an announcement. 2 participants, Yuri Yoshika and Mirai Kuriyama, had broken protocol. They were removed. In their place came a new arrival, Keiji Shinogi, an ex-Ultimate Police officer from the Neo Future Foundation. Overseer reshuffled the living arrangements and gathered everyone in the Hall of Remembrance, where he introduced the trial system. All future conflicts, truths, accusations, deaths would end in that manner. The group was introduced to Rules Card, the eccentric and heavily accented owner of the hip shop and rocket punch market. To earn coup or coupons, participants had to work shifts, with a maximum of 2 at a time working at all times. Coup could be exchanged for weapons, intel, and mysterious upgrades. Only 2 participants could work at a time. The motive would persist through the entire simulation. Later that evening, the group gathered at restaurant Playa Abierta, where a familiar face would meet them. Senor Kuma served dinner, trying to help where he could make the participants' experience at least comfortable. Familiarity began to blossom. Kizuna challenged the Overseer directly.
Why are you making us play?
Overseer's answer was frustratingly calm. He would explain that he wasn't forcing them, and that his only job was to watch over the simulation.
I overseer this game.
Making a pun of his codename. Elsewhere, Gundam Tanaka discovered a partially sunken building. Inside, the Keegan. What it did wasn't clear, but its appearance was unmistakably important. Meanwhile, curiosity turned fatal. Trucy Wright and K1B0 began experimenting with drones. It was risky fun, until it wasn't. K1B0 rigged a drone to explode near Celestia Ludenberg, but Juzo Sakakura shoved her out of the way and took the blast himself. He died instantly. At first, suspicion targeted Trucy, but as details emerged, the focus shifted to K1B0. Evidence stacked quickly. He had the drone. He was near the scene. He couldn't deny it. Found guilty, he left them with one chilling line.
This isn't my first killing game.
Overseer executed him without hesitation. 2 were gone. 18 remained, and the simulation had only just begun. The next day brought new motives and rising danger. First, the hip shop was updated. New weapons hit the shelves, tiered by coup cost. The more coup you had, the deadlier your options. But some were marked, "Do not sell." Then came the heat. Overseer announced that the air conditioning was down, and Senor Kuma had vanished trying to fix it. Slowly, the island became a furnace. The rain scorched their skin. Buildings offered limited refuge. People began to suffer, and even Overseer couldn't stand it. He and Miles Edgeworth attempted to destroy the island's temperature-regulating cube, but only made it worse. Then, the first casualty. Kokichi Oma collapsed. Heat stroke. He never woke up. Sonny Hidaka, one of the youngest, was next, dying. In a surge of desperation, Chester Sasori and Kizuna Tamori tried to kill each other to end the motive and save him, but neither could follow through, so someone else did it. Toru Yoshi was murdered, stabbed in the shadows. On the other side of the island, Korekyo Shinuji was also found dead. With the motive complete, the heat ceased, but the damage was done. In the trial, they correctly identified Gundam Tanaka as Korekyo's killer, but Aegis framed Hu Tao for Toru's death, thus getting away with murder. But with guilt came consequence. Aegis had to choose 2 more to die. Overwhelmed, she couldn't do it, so Overseer picked 3 participants for a duel in her stead. Hu Tao, the wrongly accused, Gundam, the actual killer, and Trucy Wright, chosen at random. In a bitter twist of irony, Gundam Tanaka, one of the 2 murderers, won the duel. Trucy Wright and Hu Tao were executed in his place. After Tsuruyoshi's death, the Kigen passed to Aegis, as there were only 2 ways to transfer it, by spending 5 coup or dying and giving it to the killer. Aegis became an outcast. Only Miles Edgeworth and Keiji Shinogi still spoke to her. Even they questioned her actions. Meanwhile, Rules Card introduced a new AI. Lancer, his son, and co-manager of the Rocket Punch market. That same day, Tsumugi Shirogane finally appeared, delayed by loading errors. An intern with the Neo Future Foundation and the simulation's 21st participant. Then came the next motive: blood types. Participants were given unique weapons based on their DNA. If they killed using their assigned weapon, they'd earn a randomized reward. Each one was now equipped and potentially dangerous. To ease tensions, Senor Kuma threw a disco party. Some danced, others walked out in cringe. But beneath the music, new tensions brewed. Aegis confided in Keiji and Miles, fearing Sarah Chidwin was stalking her. That evening, Miles Edgeworth was shot in the head while talking to Rules Card. As they investigated, Aegis was strangled in the Titty Typhoon bar. Her final message, a call for help to Keiji, which was never sent. In the trial, atop a pirate ship in the ocean, confusion won. Even amidst an endless sea of clues, Chester Sasori was blamed for Miles's death, while Keiji was blamed for Aegis. Sarah, the true killer, walked free, with Chester revealed as the accomplice. As Blackened, she executed the only 2 who got it right. Yukio Aoki was thrown off board from the ship by Rules Card and drowned. Gundam Tanaka was blown up later with a pirate ship. They watched the sea in silence, wondering who would be next. After the fourth trial, the simulation shifted into a warped memory realm known as the Dreamscape. Familiar locations from the tragedy across the seas reappeared, including the body of one Nagito Komaeda, as well as the trial. They would then wake up in the plaza back in Arcadia Island, perplexed about what had just happened. Keiji Shinogi later found Overseer at a graveyard, sitting beside a tombstone marked Fumiko Gin. Her grave was familiar to those who had been looking for the terminals. The Overseer simply said he was visiting an old friend. Meanwhile, Sunny's room turned into a white void for his own peace of mind. A new motive was introduced: infection and radiation. A viral outbreak of a disease that affected everyone differently spread fast. The radiology room and the electrical core leaked uranium. The electrical core could now also be locked from the outside. Some participants were immune to the disease, such as Keiji, Tsumugi, Mari, and Sara. Others like Sunny, Celestia, Ranmaru, and now Egokoro spiraled, mentally and physically. Celestia was trapped inside the irradiated electrical room. She died clawing at the door. In the trial, despite little evidence, Kizuna's family faction voted Chester guilty without doing due diligence and disregarding evidence. Overseer, furious, invoked a harsh twist to correct this situation. A member from the family faction must die. Mari Hidaka was selected and sent to execution with Chester. However, the trial had one final twist. Before the executions, the Overseer offered a choice: 5 minutes to volunteer themselves for the execution and change the outcome. Eventually, Lancer, Rules' son, would volunteer for Chester, and Kizuna Tamori volunteered for Mari. Seconds before execution, now Egokoro would take Kizuna's place as well, saving Chester, Kizuna, and Mari. Lancer was deleted, now was executed. After the executions, Overseer privately warned Chester,
"You won't get your life back when this ends."
A hurricane forced a lockdown. The 8 survivors were split into 3 groups, able to travel only via portals using Ku. While exploring, they discovered Kokichi Oma's terminal, one he made while outside the simulation, revealing Mari Hidaka and Chester Sasori were dead in the real world. Behind the church, photos of their corpses confirmed it. Overseer confronted Chester, calling him the usurper. The truth was revealed. He had murdered his brother and stolen his identity as an avatar. In despair, Chester tried to kill himself twice. Overseer stopped him both times. Chester hid in a hydraulic press closet, where Sunny Hidaka was also hiding. Then came a double death. Tsumugi Shirogane was found murdered in Yukio's room, and the hydraulic press room was drenched in blood. Either Sunny or Chester was dead. In the trial, Mari was identified as Tsumugi's killer. Before she was voted off, she was told the truth. Mari Hidaka was dead in the real world, which meant that the Mari in front of them had been a memory AI all along. The surviving person spoke only through a drone, breaking down when Mari's fate was sealed, thus giving away that Sunny had survived and Chester was dead. The irony of the situation was that both siblings had killed. Both were manipulated by others, such as Keiji for Mari and Chester for Sunny. Due to the circumstances of the trial, only the first killer would be executed, which meant Mari would die. Sunny begged the Overseer not to take her, his sister, but Overseer would encourage Sunny to accept her loss, and that he needed to be stronger.
Sunny, you already said goodbye to her once. Phew, get to do it twice.
He then gave them one final moment together. During her execution, Mari played a piano in a white room, similar to the one Sunny had. Once she was done, the piano rose and dropped, crushing her beneath its weight. Kizuna ran to her side, sobbing over Mari's broken body. The overseer watched and remembered his friend, Fumiko Gin. A moment from his own past, something in him shifted. As the survivors regrouped, Overseer announced the next motive would involve 6 participants, yet only 5 remained. Keiji Shinogi, Sara Chiduin, Ranmaru Kageyama, Sunny Hidaka, and Kizuna Tomori. The implication was clear. Someone else was still alive. That morning, graffiti defaced every participant's wall ID, even the deceased. At the hip shop, the group discovered a final terminal from Chester Sasori, expressing deep guilt, hopelessness, and fear of the Kigen, believing it had cursed him. He asked his longtime rival Kizuna to take care of the kids, unaware of Mari's death. Senor Kuma met the 5, as well as Juzo Sakakura's ghost, silently roaming in a glitched, zombified state. He guided them to a newly unlocked area, the island farm. At the center of the farm were 6 marked circles, each with a participant's face. Then, from the sky, a figure descended. Lola, the ultimate saboteur, and survivor of the tragedy across the seas. As the participants explored Arcadia Island, they uncovered terminals chronicling a past event, the tragedy across the seas, the same real-life killing game explored in the terminals of the first simulation. 18 boarded the JSS Kirigiri Polaris, a luxury cruiser. Peace was short-lived. One passenger, the traitor, had installed a virus into the ship's systems, handing control to an unknown mastermind. While the ship's route stayed normal, the killing game began behind the scenes. Sora Sonzai was the first to die, murdered by Harue Ayaka in a panic. Her consciousness would later become the foundation of the ultimate vessel. Harue was executed. The next day, Techero Vega, manipulated by the traitor, confronted Kiyoshi Aki, believing him a threat. A misunderstanding turned fatal, as Kiyoshi stabbed Techero 150 times in self-defense, but was executed anyway. One night, all passengers awoke with shock collars. A prisoner's dilemma played out. During the final round, all voted Ali to spare their pair, except Nikki Fox, who shocked Akemi Warugaki fatally in order to save herself. She was spared trial. But the next day, Akari Tereru, Akemi's best friend, took revenge, murdering Nikki just as Jon Snow, in panic, had killed Fumiko Gin as the time was about to run out. The trial came to a mere difference in seconds, and as Akari killed first, she was executed and Jon was spared. Zar Crow, the ultimate programmer, discovered surveillance footage revealing Yukino Mamiya as the mastermind. He confronted her at an electrified pool, but she fought back and both died falling into the pool. Sakro's hopes of stopping the game were in vain, as Yukino wasn't the mastermind, but the traitor. Finally, Nagito Komaeda, the remnant of despair, was found dead. In a rushed trial, Salvador de Miranda was falsely blamed. The real killer, Gonta Gokuhara, confessed post-trial. He decided to execute Jon Snow and Lola. But during Jon's execution, the Interpol raided the ship, stopping the game and causing chaos. Gonta and Lola vanished, believed to be dead. Jon was critically injured, and only 4 survivors remained: Salvador de Miranda, Ichigo Misaki, Kizaku Ishikuro, and Yamato Akabane. The mastermind was never found, which was was the reason Overseer sought to find that information, both through the ultimate vessel and his own memories in Arcadia Island. Lola's appearance meant that she and Gonta had managed to survive their ordeal. Her presence created immediate tension, especially with Senor Kuma and Rule's card. Soon, they unlocked the final building, the fortress, where the Volunteers' Dilemma began. In the Volunteers' Dilemma, players could choose to cooperate, lose 20 HP, others gain 10, or defect, no loss, gain 10 per cooperator. If all defected, minus 30 health points would be given to all. If all cooperated, minus 10 each. After 5 rounds, a deathmatch would trigger if no one died. Senor Kuma glitched and vanished mid-rules. Lola and Rule's card took over. Lola cooperated every round and nearly died, only to cheat the system and restore herself to 999 health points. Tensions peaked as 2 factions clashed, Sunny and Kizuna versus Sara and Ranmaru. Keiji Shinogi confronted Kizuna, challenging her fixation and selfishness on protecting the children. At the end, it was revealed the goal wasn't survival, it was morality. This was a test that Overseer had made to showcase the moral strength of the participants. The most cooperative won, that is, the person with the lowest health. Keiji Shinogi, the most selfless, was declared victor. Kizuna Tamori, the most selfish, was deemed the loser. Keiji chose to die in her place, saying,
"I'm no Ginabushi, so I guess it's my turn to die."
Lola shot him. He was gone. The group followed her to the Victory Road vault, only to be met with
access denied.
Lola and Rules were forcibly disconnected. Lost, the survivors followed Juzo Sakakura's ghost to the beach. There they found the Overseer, sitting looking into the ocean. He spoke of morality. Is good the absence of selfishness? Is it right to forget pain to preserve peace? Can sacrificing a few truly save the many? He admitted guilt over the 9 deaths in the Beta Centauri simulation, failures born of his hubris. Sora Sonzai's cold, spiteful gaze in the simulation haunted him. He believed she would be ashamed of what he'd become, but seeing Kizuna cradle Mari's corpse reminded him of Fumiko Gin, his lost friend, and why he had started this in the first place. To stop suffering, to end killing games, to make sure no one else had to go through what they did. So he made his decision. To end all killing games, he had to end this one. He snapped his fingers. And then, from all sides, nuclear explosions erupted. Everything turned green as the island burned. The 7th motive was about to begin. The survivors awoke in one of the houses, beneath a dark green sky and blackened shores. It wasn't night, it was something worse. Overseer revealed the truth. Sunny Hidaka had been forced into the simulation by his parents, hoping it would help him grieve his sister. As they fled the house, they were chased by ghosts, avatars of past participants still trapped in the system. They escaped to the Hall of Remembrance, where the final trial began. The focus was the Kigen, now considered a virus by the simulation. If they voted correctly, only the holder would live. If wrong, both the suspect and the real holder would die. All executions would trigger the Tsar Bomba, a digital shutdown causing days of agony before waking. Through testimony and trade logs, the path of the Kigen was revealed. Gundam gave it to Toru Yoshi. Toru was killed by Aegis, who then was killed by Sara. Sara gave it to Chester, who then was killed by Sunny. Knowing this, a discussion began. Once again, It came down to Sara and Ranmaru against Kizuna and Sunny. However, the ghosts were able to participate. Despite Sunny's objections, the group voted for him, not to punish, but to save the kid. He survived. Sara, Ranmaru, and Kizuna were set for execution. At Victory Road, Sunny said his goodbyes before entering the safety zone. Overseer triggered the shutdown protocol. The three were consumed by the blast. Later, Sunny and Overseer awoke in the real world, but joy faded fast. The three who endured the SR bomber awoke screaming, traumatized, broken. They were transferred to a psychiatric ward for long-term care. Meanwhile, the usurper who posed as Chester Sasori was no longer among them. He had been arrested for the murder of his twin brother, the real Chester Sasori. Haunted by everything that had happened, Salvador de Miranda formally resigned as Overseer of Simulations within the Neo Future Foundation. He chose instead to work directly with the United Nations, hoping to stop future killing games not with simulations, but through action.